I'm going to pause for just a second so it catches up. So good morning. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This meeting is broadcast for remote access via live stream on YouTube. This meeting may inadvertently cause a quorum of other county committees or other county board supervisors. No business or other actions, no decisions of any other committees or board of supervisors will be conducted at this meeting. This meeting and all other meetings for this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin statutes so that the citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting. So roll call has gone around. So that's how our standard, we've signed in and we utilize that for the roll call. And I'm going to do the election of chair. And at this time, are there any nominations for chair of the Agriculture and Extension Education Committee?
I nominate Dennis Waupaca for chairman.
All right, Dennis has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? And one more time, are there any other nominations? All right. Seeing no more nominations, is there a motion to close nominations?
I'll make a motion to close
All right.
nominations.
All right. Ken has moved to close nominations. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Dick is seconded. This motion is not amendable nor debatable. All those in favor of closing nominations say aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed? Motion passes. Nominations are closed. We will now, would you like to do a voice vote or a ballot vote?
Yeah, voice vote.
Okay. All those in favor of Dennis Wembelski as chair of the committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. All right, motion passes. Dennis is the chair of the Ag and Extension Education Committee. So congratulations. Right. And at this time, are you comfortable with me turning the meeting over to you?
Sure.
Okay, so the vice chair would be the next order of business.
Okay, could we have a nomination for vice chair? Any nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Dick Ramon.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Nominations are closed.
I make a motion that we close the nominations and pass a unanimous vote for that.
I second that.
Voice vote again?
Yeah.
Okay. All those for Dick, please say
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hey, Dick, you're in vice chair. Thank you. Okay, the next order of business is, I'm just wondering, could I put in, have the new members talk, say, give it a little bit?
Yes. Yeah, that would be, yes, that would be very welcome.
Pete Vasquez, this is my third term as a county board supervisor representing District 21, all of Caledonia and a little bit of the town of Fremont. Prior to being on the county board, I was a Waupaca County Sheriff's deputy for 20 years and part-time water patrol and Manawa officer and dispatcher for the city of Waupaca and some undercover work for the village of North Fond du Lac for 3 years. That's me in a nutshell.
As long as you weren't a security guard in Buffalo.
No.
Oh,
That would have been 1994.
I was there.
I by chasing your own, your toilet paper?
Didn't really do that as much, but,
You got yourself into that one.
I was a pretty good kid. We didn't move there until, I mean, I would have been in college at that point, but my parents were still living.
Lila, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I grew up in Iola and after college lived in Milwaukee for 10 years. Came back and I've been at Central Wisconsin Electric Co-op, or as a lot of people know it as REA, for 28 years in the finance department. And because it's a small place, you kind of end up doing a little bit of everything there. So, and then the person that I'm the supervisor in District 8, which is the township of Iola, Helvetia, Wyoming, and Harrison, which is where I live, obviously, but that's where I've always lived all my life. And the person that had the position before me passed away, and she was just a very down-to-earth, caring person, and I just want to make sure that we kind of kept that going. Just care about the county, and that's why I'm here. This is all new to me, although I did take leadership Waupaca County, so I did have a little touch with the extension at that point in time. It's a great program, and I'm happy to see it's still going on now.
We just had graduation last week.
Oh, did you?
Lovely, yeah.
Boy. And do you still go to a different business every meeting?
We did it this year, it was virtual this year. Because,
Oh, COVID.
yeah, we didn't know what was gonna happen.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, let's go on to the next order of business. Reviewed and accept the agenda. Somebody want to make a nomination?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Pete. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Yeah, have you reviewed the previous minutes of March 28th? Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion to accept the previous month's.
I'll second.
Approved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Next, order of business is correspondence.
I don't have any for you.
Move on to administrative department report, review report.
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. So going to try to model a little bit this morning is twofold. We have some business and discussion items, and it's also an opportunity to give some broad overview or some general about how our department works. Is some introductions. This morning our staff each, so both Jessica and Penny, have some general overview introductions that of programs, so you can see how things fit together. I normally start off and kind of give some of the nuts and bolts things as far as a department update, and then go from there. For those of you who I have not had the opportunity to meet, my name is Chris View. I am an area extension director, and in our, so I did do a little show and tell, so this will be placed in with the packet and will be with the minutes, but the colored organizational, the organizational chart. So I am a University of Wisconsin Division of Extension, University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension staff member. And if you, one of the things that's interesting, if you look in the middle blue, and if you look at area 10, that is the area that I provide administrative leadership for those 4 county extension departments. We'll talk a little bit, and there's a little bit of show and tell that Penny and Jessica and our the other staff are over in the other colors on the left-hand side. Many of them, many of those in those different colors also have geographic office locations in those blue counties. So the 2 columns that are on your left, that is our programmatic functions. So those are clumped by the program or the content areas that our educators will specialize in. The blue is relating to our operations. So these are the logistics and all of the things. So in addition to serving as a department head for each of those counties listed, also have an opportunity. I engage with program managers, with staff to make sure that we have an opportunity to meet emerging needs, provide some support on plans of work if needed, do staff evaluations, other supervision, or other good connections or finding resources to help the educators support their work. So prior to this role that I've been doing for the last 3 years, I was a 4-H youth development educator working in both Dunn and Wood counties prior to transitioning to this role. Also I had a co-appointment or a simultaneous appointment for 6 years in that I served as a 4-H program area liaison, so providing some support and coaching and mentorship for 4-H youth development professionals across the state. So that's some of my experience that I'm bringing forward here. So a couple of facility and staff updates. One of the things I just want to make this group aware is that have been given notice that Annette Spieth has announced her intent to retire. So they're somewhere in early July. So Annette is one of our program support staff. So she's Amy's counterpart. We have a team of two full-time support staff that support our educational programs and the administrative work of the office. So with the advance notice, we worked a plan. I'm working to plan to fill the position as efficiently as possible as we can go through the approvals that are needed. And if everything works, there's still some potential that we might have at least a couple days to a week of overlap for some training. Also recognizing that if the top candidates, that may not work for the top candidate, that we're going to go for the top candidate, and we'll work on doing orientation as we go. The best that we can. Moving forward, I know that there may be opportunities, and in the next, actually here, I'm going to go to the next one. For those of you who are at our March meeting, Sandy Lang announced her retirement, or not retirement. I'm thinking we all wish that that we were able to retire. So she has transitioned to her position with the Dane County United Way. And that position is currently vacant. I have met with extension leadership in the institute and have approval to move forward with the hiring of the position with a focus on lifespan education and financial education. So I think those are the two of the bigger needs in our area. That position is under contract and is budgeted within the current budget. So I am planning to begin the next steps of moving forward with hiring that position. For both of those positions, wherever there will be opportunities for a member of the committee to provide input or feedback in the hiring, that will be very, very welcome. I will work with individuals with the if there are individuals, especially for the human development and relationships position with the state of Wisconsin. So this is one of the things that if you ever want to know what things that might madden you, is the number of check boxes that I have to go through just to get to the point where we can do that. One of the things is that I have to submit the search and screen committee fairly soon in the process. So if there is someone who would like to be part of that search and screen process for that, we need to include the names, kind of the roster, so that everybody knows who it is. In the past, someone like like Dennis might be given maybe the right of first refusal, but there is there is the opportunity for refusal, Dennis, if there's somebody else that would like to, or if you'd like to defer to somebody else. That also might be the case if, as appropriate with the support staff role, where we can find, myself and our educator staff is definitely going to be part of that process, but we'll work in with whatever those processes will be. So planning on, I'll keep you in the loop. So planning on moving forward with those positions, and the support staff role, not planning to make any major changes. The position description, we actually, when Amy was hired, we went through and we updated, and that was only 3 years ago. We updated the position description and it's still pretty sound. So there's not a lot of need to go through and review that, as is. And one of the things that we had the opportunity with some other shuffling, both of those positions are full-time at 40 hours. We were able to transition from 37.5 to 40 hours. And so by doing that, what we were also able to do is transition. We increased in our budget. If anybody has had the chance to look over this department's budget, one of the things that we have is that we have $7,500 line item for part-time casual, in which, for example, Penny is working to have a summer, bring someone in to help. One, potentially, hopefully the gap is very small, but to help bridge the gap with some of the tasks that might be needed this summer. And there is just a lot of things that happen in the summer. That's a very high activity, high program, to be able to just to take a little bit of relief off of the team to be able to add and contribute. So kind of in general. The other thing related, because I had indicated, currently the ag position is no longer vacant. The county board removed that position, or removed the funding for that position from our budget by action in January. But I did want to update you, looking at in March. Just an update, as we indicated in March when we last met, we do keep a tally of some of the walk-ins and some of the themes that there are. There were actually over 50 walk-ins in the month of March related to agriculture. Part of that was because there was a pesticide applicator training. So that did include, that's a service. That isn't a service that we provide. That it's a host. We hosted the educational workshops, and then Amy proctored the tests so that the individuals could get their private pesticide applicator. This is the last year that it's going to be offered in that format. There's going to be a little more comprehensive and streamlined approach. It's still going to be offered by extension, but there's going to be a small one of our UW-Madison extension the team are gonna provide all of the trainings and do them both virtually and in person to provide that relief from the regional from those regional and statewide educators. So taking some of those responsibilities and consolidating.
Were some of those programs done jointly with Fox Valley Tech? And
so there are some other, so moving forward, so here's one of the things about, so specifically pesticide applicator. So that's a Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection, a DAPCAP regulation that everyone who buys, anybody who wants to purchase and apply certain classes of chemicals need to have, at the very least, if they're doing it for just themselves, a private pesticide applicator. If they're going to get hired out, then they would have to go and do commercial pesticide applicator training. And then there's a couple of subclasses. For example, over in Wood County, the cranberry growers need to be certified in fruit crop because there's some different nuances with that. so that was in partnership. So extension in many cases has provided the educational component. And then while the individuals are there, then also provided the test or the proctoring. The component that comes in moving forward is that there is a company that works with the tech colleges that provides online proctored certifications, and they're working on developing the pesticide applicator training so that you would make an appointment and you go in and you would take your test online using one of these using this contracted service in which they have like a testing area in the technical colleges. This is similar to like some of the like real estate licensing, insurance, some of those that are required. And the reason why I'm explaining some of this where it gets nuanced is that neither UW Wisconsin, because we're part of the UW system, which we're a de facto state agency, nor DATCAP, can charge for testing. It's part of the Wisconsin statutes. So that's where we can provide, so there would be registration to provide for the training materials, but we can't charge for the testing, whereas these third-party companies can charge a small fee for the testing because they are not those two state agencies.
So that position that was defunded.
Yep.
I don't know if I have a better word for it.
Yeah.
Would that person normally have proctored those tests?
So transitioning to help provide support. So to give you a very quick overview, the transition, the funding or the staffing strategy is an industry supported strategy to focus, allow the outreach educators in extension to focus on content over geography. If for example, this is what it could possibly look like in Waupaca County, there would be for a crops educator, there would be a 2 to 4, probably 2 to 3 county area in which there would be an educator who would be full-time that would be focused on crops, largely probably forage production, soil quality, and in many cases would work with land conservation to help educate producers on practices and the science behind the things, but allow land conservation to administer their grant funded or grant based programs, or work on individual solutions if there are producers that have that need some assistance from a technical standpoint. Then to complement that, there would also be for a 3, 4, 5 county regional dairy educator that would then provide that same level of outreach towards, but focused on dairy production, which could include goats and sheep, but more likely would include dairy cattle in this part of the state. And those two individuals would likely overlap some of their territory, and they would have access. They would have access to both the. They would be able to refer to each other. They would have access to our state research specialists, and also be able to work in coordination. Because in addition to those regional positions, which are housed in county offices, there are also some statewide outreach educators in some areas such as beef production and agricultural water quality. So especially our crops educators, our regional crops educators are going to interact with those agricultural water quality. And there's 2, possibly 3 that are coming on board to meet those areas. One for sure in northeastern Wisconsin with the interesting the soil types that are there, and then more so to central Wisconsin with the water quality concerns. And I think there's already one that was hired in the southwestern part of the state with all of the terrain and concerns that are there, especially with the small acreages. So that's kind of in a nutshell, and I can definitely provide some more information, but I'm very happy to answer questions.
But I think people referencing to him, so Lila knows too, we're referencing to the old Greg Blondie position, where Greg Blondie did everything. He was very versatile. Any question that came up, Greg had an answer. But they don't have that type of person out there anymore. You'd be a fortune.
Right, so that is a significant,
Specialty- Not right
yeah.
now, they got specialty fields that people come in at.
right,
And like he explained, the specialty fields, and the other issue that came up on this was it was two different types of issues. One was, we wanted it just for Waupaca County, but I think there was a misclarification there. That's not out there no more, and I don't think finance was aware of the fact that in general, to provide that type of service, there are 3-4 counties involved, even in land and water. There's that ladies or guy, whatever, they're in charge of, there 3-4 counties are guiding. And I think there was a miscommunication there on the fact that they didn't realize what the switch was, but yet it was in other departments. It's the same way that we were, where Chris was going with it.
so one of the other pieces to add is that the partnership between the county and the extension is a contracted, it's a contracted agreement. And there are the positions, the outreach educator positions are co-funded, meaning that there is a flat fee that the county pays, and that flat fee in 2022 was $43,600 per staff member. That by no means is like a specific portion. That's just a flat fee for budgeting, planning purposes, and the rest is co-funded. The other piece is that it will, in the 2022, and we're getting close to me being able to sharing the contract and working through that as a committee, because it's part of the budget process. It'll go up 3% to as everything is. So there's just inflationary costs. So those regional positions would be the same flat fee, and they would be divided equally by the number of counties that would be part of those regions. So if you take and we're moving towards, we're at about 44,000. So if there are 4 counties, you divide 44 by 4 and you get 11. And so 11 each. The division of extension will pick up whatever the rest of the salary and the fringe benefits and things like that. So as a result, that's where the connection, so that's where those regional educators are in the blue areas, working with those blue areas, but they have strong connections to their programming partners in those colored areas. And then they can both bring educational programs back into locally, and they also can connect the producers or the residents in this area with resources, with that beef specialist or that water quality specialist or whatever it might be. So I think that is trying to give you an overview of where we're at currently. That due to the federal funding, due to the nature of the federal funding, there does need to be a local match. So the services that Waupaca County, with the decision to opt out of the ag services, are limited. One of the areas, so for example, in the month of April, there were 8 individuals that came in for soil tests, right? We can provide the basic service of providing the individuals information about taking the soil test and sending it away, but we don't have the ability, or we don't have the staffing to be able to help those residents with the recipients of their test results interpret them and make decisions. We don't have that staff member. That would be something that would be available now. there's a big asterisk that I want to put out there. The horticulture program is making a transition to make itself available to consumers, to all residents of the state, regardless of whether they have an extension educator in the area of horticulture. That's something that it cuts across a lot of lines. It may not be an in-person service. It may be email or phone, but it would be, or web-based, but it would be providing lawn and garden, home horticulture responses. And in many cases, tomato blight is tomato blight is tomato blight. So there's some pretty universal resources once you diagnose it on how you would be able to treat that. So that's one of the big, that's the big asterisk, is that horticulture, whether it be diagnostics and other general information, is an area which web-based, email-based is available to all residents regardless of where they live in the state of Wisconsin.
Can I just add, sorry, I just wanted to add an additional, Bernie, to your question about going back to the pesticide applicator training. Yes, that is something Greg had done in the past.
Yes.
He would administer the full, it was an in-person day-long training and test. He would do that. Now, what Chris was explaining is the whole process of the pesticide applicator training is also changing. Not just because Greg retired,
No.
but it's changing how it's administered. So yes, Greg had done that in the past.
Yes.
And like Amy would have done, like if somebody couldn't make it, you could do a self-study. They would come in just to do the test. Amy would, get them set up in a room and do that. When it was an in-person training for the day, Greg did do all of those.
So where do they go now for that training?
So
That's what-
this year we hosted, and I say we, extension
Right.
across the state. With our local offices, we hosted a large number of trainings because there was a couple of reasons. There's a 5-year, you're certified for 5 years. And COVID, due to some COVID rule, or not due to COVID rules, due to COVID, some of the expiration dates were pushed back. This particular year, in the spring of 2022, was like the perfect storm, the multiplier of getting the most, of having the most certifications that were ready to expire or had expired and people needed them to purchase this year. So we kind of adopted an all hands on deck approach to make sure that we informed the producers that at least we knew of. So we have those that are in the database. You either need to go and do your online, you need to do self-study, or you need to come in and attend, go and attend one of these face-to-face workshops, or and Amy hosted a Zoom workshop and then followed it up with the test. So that's how we did it this year. That's somewhat similar without the online or the virtual component. That's how we would have done it. Would have been one or two face-to-face sessions. There, regionally, in many cases, the local team would have made sure that they were not on top of each other. So if people needed to, go to different dates, and that is just, and we're not eliminating that. We're just transitioning that to a different office or a different group in extension. That's what their role is to provide that pesticide outreach education or the applicator. So it's much more focused and it's specific. They will do face-to-face and do a regional, and they may, so Glenn is the one who's coordinated. He might work with Amy and I to host one here. Or there's also then still the same virtual education, and we may still be asked to offer a space for someone to come in and take their exams. So that's kind of one
When
of
we
those.
offer it here, it'd be virtually, we would need a
Yes.
space.
Right. Or there are going to be some face-to-face workshops, and they may call and say, hey, that's an area of the state, or do you have a space that we could do a face-to-face workshop and we can work to promote it type things. So So I guess that's
Can I share just one more thing
Yep.
on the ag position? So I know, Amy and Annette get more of the walk-in traffic and the phone calls with questions for the ag position. And I had just wanted to share, somehow somebody, last week got my line. So they had called and asked me to transfer them to somebody that would be able to answer agriculture questions. And and I tried to explain that, we don't have that position anymore, and, and then the lady is like, well, how can they do that in a county that has so much agriculture around it? And, I was trying to, explain, because we have kind of talking points, about how to answer those questions, and, it's very challenging to do that. So, I just, I know Amy and Annette get a lot of those, and, and then I went and I told her that, there are things online that I can give you a website, and she said, I don't have a computer, and I said, well, let me go talk to Annette and see, what else we have available, and I came back and she had hung up. So, and it's, so it's challenging trying to answer those questions.
Is that because it's new and different and people are used to getting that, calling up Greg and saying, hey, what kind of bug is this?
Well, I think it's
Or is
because
it-
I think just having agriculture, ag agents were the first part of extension, like, that's how extension started. So I think
Right.
just, the history of extension is, people look at extension for agriculture.
Right. But
Because that's how it
seems to be,
started.
Seems to be changing and morphing into more of a, internet-based information source.
There is internet available, and, there are still people covering most of the counties in some respect. So, there is still, in most counties, somebody that somebody can talk to. And so, like, they might be part-time.
Not part-time, but.
Right, well, yeah.
If I
They've
could,
got model
if I could just add, so before the position, or when that position was open still, was vacant, and somebody called in with a question, I could refer them to another educator in a different county or another ag agent, but now,
we're
since-
limited in what we can refer
Right.
without the financial.
So now it's just the website that I'm able to provide.
It tied everybody in, and right now with the water quality and everything, people are more subconscious of what they're doing out there. And that's why I felt so. I took it quite hard when we got turned down and we did not replace Greg Blondie's position. I can't even say what his type horticulturalist.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. But he answered all the questions, and these questions are still there.
Right.
And my township, my district 22, took a very hard stance on this. They even spoke on this issue. I think it's important that this position has to be filled. More so now than ever.
So if we went to even a part-time, like other counties do, a part-time person, so they have someone to call, you would be able to, if that person isn't working, you'd be able to refer them to somebody else in a different county to answer that question. Is that how-
So, that is part of, that is, and what I want to say, the staff, the positions that we would hire, the intent is they would be full-time individuals. They would be full-time individuals who would be providing their outreach education services to more than one county. So the there's a lot of different ways that could look like. So for example, yes, the answer to your question is yes, with part of that, having an educator, even if there is, so for example, the regional educators that would be assigned or have Waupaca County as the region, for example, would be in crops and dairy. Okay, if someone calls and has a question for beef, that's not necessarily the wheelhouse, but because there is an investment in the outreach education, then the individuals in that role, or Amy or whoever happens to be, can say, this is our statewide outreach beef person, and provide a phone number or an email address or both to the consumer to be able to get in to connect with them. And so right now we're limited in that referral ability because we don't have that initial point of contact.
And those folks too, like if someone found the information on their own, the beef specialist would be limited in their capacity to serve. Is that correct?
No, the beef position is a statewide position, so.
Yeah, I meant.
But you're saying like in our
In our
county,
county.
like
we would
if
be
somebody found a phone number for the beef person
Yeah,
from somewhere.
they would know, they would be able to work with the inquiry or the request, through with whatever, they would just, it's like all of us. We sometimes we have to put them in queue and say, hey, got your message, I'll get back to you, some other things. They would still be able to work. There's not necessarily a gateway or a gatekeeper that they would have to go through a certain step of process. So there would be ways that consumers could work directly with those outreach specialists or statewide outreach staff, if depending on what their.
Even if there isn't investment, that's what I was.
Oh, if there is not an
Yeah, I
investment.
meant like right now.
No, they would be
Right now.
limited,
Okay.
there would be limited. So right now, residents, if there is, let's say that statewide beef specialist is offering a webinar on grazing. Any resident of the state of Wisconsin, actually anyone in the United States that has an internet connection, could register and attend that general webinar. Okay, where the limiting factor is if there was 8 or 9 beef producers in Waupaca County that wanted that individual to come and give a talk or a workshop or specialize, they would have to decline because of the lack of local investment. So the web resources are available to all of the residents. Any of the general educational topics are available to all of the residents, but it would be the specific the independent or the customized solutions are the ones that are where the limiting factor is. And at least in my experience, and Amy, you can nod yes or no, but that's also the individualized, the ones with lots of context. Those are the questions that we get that we're unable to be able to refer right now.
I also heard complaints on the response time when you were trying to reach somebody else, we had nobody here.
Right.
It takes
Right.
time, and the farmers want a response.
They want it right now.
They pretty much today.
Right.
If you call me back in 2 hours, that's fine, but don't wait till tomorrow, I don't know where I'm gonna be tomorrow.
Right. Right.
And we don't have that.
And also, so one of the other pieces, Ken, and one of the individuals that was our referral, that position is also vacant right now as well for reasons. So it was a little bit of a perfect storm that didn't help the cause. So that's just an FYI, and understanding that and trying to, that's also where some of the, for example, the regional, as we move forward within this staffing model, like the regional crops educators, are starting to meet on a fairly regular basis and try to determine what are some of the proactive, what are the things, the topics or things that might be coming up, so that they can work to try and get information out a little bit ahead of time, knowing that you can't predict everything, but at certain times of the year, there are some certain trends, just like, Penny has a gut feeling that once the calendar turns to May, that there starts to be questions related to, and then you can fill in the blank.
County fair.
County fair, those types of things. So I'm going to have more information for that on that. I just wanted to just share, and I'm happy to answer questions, but I also want to be aware of time and move through. So just a fact sheet that I pulled together, just a kind of an overview of what the mission and the programs that Extension has. So this is just something for your FYI. Again, that will also be included in the minutes packet so that public will have access to that. The PDF version would, and I can send that if you request, because there are those blue underlined there are links to the different to the 6 different program areas. So those would be I will do that. I will send that to the whole committee so that you have that and you can go and click on your own. Just remember that not to reply to all. A review, now that we are at so there's 2 things that are happening. We've now financial, just a quick financial, an oral financial report. We've now, at least for the bookkeeping, have been, we're always almost a month behind. So we've completed the quarter mark. In most categories, we are still in the underspent area. So the budget is looking good. One of the things that we are keeping an eye on is some of our travel related expenses, because, and it's just an awareness piece. We did learn a couple things through COVID that virtual can be not all audiences, but some of our audiences virtual can be a preferred tool, or can be a tool that can increase some participation. That may come at decreased mileage costs. And so this is like the first full year that we're able to be normal. I mean, in air quotes, but so we may look at, are there other like transitioning, like taking, okay, if we're really not traveling as much, but are there other electronic or subscription tools or things to increase or enhance the education that would happen virtually, or find that balance so that we're being smart stewards of the resources that we have, to make sure that we're reaching the impact. And I'll let the others talk about impact there. And I provided some general overview. So if there are more questions, I would answer, but I've concluded my portion of the report and would like the opportunity for Jessica and Penny to provide some programmatic updates, which I believe is the next agenda topic.
I want to thank you for taking the time to explain, to get everybody up to speed on where we are with the work.
Right. And one just last thing, from a state extension perspective, we are still committed to having extension staff, especially ag, in the county offices. It may look a little different, but the commitment and the outreach education and the commitment to that outreach education is the same. It just might look a little bit different staffing wise, but we want to provide, our goal is to still be connected to the residents in the communities, the producers. I'll make a note next month. I have some data and some stats of just how important the ag community is, and how big of a part is, and I'll share that with you at our next meeting.
Okay, then I guess we go on to educator reports.
Do you want to go, or do you want me to?
I can.
Jessica's on here first.
Oh, okay, Jessica can go first.
All right, I'll go first. I wasn't looking at the agenda clearly. I just jotted a couple of notes to share with you all. Hi, I'm Jessica, and I love to always joke that I've done almost every job that you can do in community and economic development. It's not totally true, but it's close. I started out in GIS, so Geographic Information Systems. I made maps. Then I went into urban planning, where I worked for the city of Menasha for a long time. And then I went into economic development, where I worked for the Green Bay Area Chamber of Commerce. And then the only other place that I could go after that was education. So I came to Extension in 2012. And I did it sort of while I was finishing my master's degree in communications and leadership studies. And so I came to Extension part-time in 2012, kind of bounced around from kind of short-term contract to short-term contract while I finished my master's degree, finished that, and then I eventually came here to Waupaca County. my funny thing, for those of you who don't know, my dad is from New London, my mom is from Bear Creek, so coming back, I actually, when I graduated from Manawa High School, my father was in the Navy, so we came back here when he retired, for my last 2 years of high school. When I graduated from Manawa High School, I said, I'm never coming back, never, never, never. And then, I got the job here, and it's been really actually a lovely experience compared to when you move here as a teenager. And which is difficult no matter where you go, I wanna recognize that. Yeah, so it's been a lovely experience and I'm happy to be here and now I have been able to, you know, when I first came here, I remember I was really excited because Leadership Waupaca County was one of the programs I was inheriting, and that's exactly, you know, my master's degree was in communications and leadership studies, and so it was a very exciting thing for me. So I made a few notes about the things that you're going to hear the most about, at least in the next year, because our work changes. So first, what I've been working on lately, one of the big things I've been working on lately is the New London Transportation Project. Some of you have been hearing about this on and off, but I've been working with the New London group since before it became a group. I was working with this small subset, and then the goal, we created a communications plan. The goal of that group then, of that small group, was to multiply and get other partners on the table, which they did. And then I was invited to those meetings, and now it's really grown. And we recently submitted a over $3 million grant application to the to the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation for a Wisconsin Innovation Grant. And it was incredible because we found out about the grant 3 weeks before it was due. And when you're writing a $3 million plus grant, that's not a lot of time to pull together everything you need. There was this amazing group of people that just came together and were like, okay, we're gonna get this done. And so we did. We were like pinging each other on weekends, and we were writing the grant for a while. So what we're hoping for, the purpose of that project, is to provide workforce transportation to people that need it. So there's all kinds of programs out there that serve people over 60 or people with disabilities. There's not a lot of options, and in rural areas, there's fewer people who own cars. There's fewer cars per working adult in rural areas, and so there's actually often a little bit more of an issue, especially when the people are lower income. And so we're looking to serve lower income adults who don't fit into other programs, right? So if they fit into other programs, we're going to coordinate with those programs and make sure that they get served. So we want to, we have some employers at the table who believe this is very important, and who, one of which has been actually tracking the percentage of people who turn over because they don't have access to reliable transportation. So we have some numbers and data to back us up, knowing that this is a bigger issue than I think a lot of us even realize, because most of us have cars and most of us, aren't in that situation. Okay. I'm gonna go a little fast because I have a lot of projects going on that you're gonna hear about, or that you're gonna be hearing about in the next year. The next thing is, but you can interrupt me if you have questions, is the childcare issue. So the pandemic really exposed the importance of childcare in our society. And I got together with a group of other colleagues, or I should say I jumped on board with other colleagues who were getting together about working on childcare. And I was kind of the lead facilitator for the, last year we called it the Childcare Business Initiative, where we were trying to help strengthen existing childcare businesses and entice new people to start them, or people who maybe aren't licensed to get licensed. And so we held these series of workshops last year. And then Sandy, parallel to that, Sandy, who recently left our office, had been working on putting together a network of early childcare educators in Waupaca County. And so since she has left, I was working with her on taking them through a decision-making process to decide what kinds of things they wanted to do together. And now I'm kind of, in the interim, kind of helping that group out and convening them together. But Ryan Brown has also, and Jeff McCorsky to some degree, has also been working with this group because they will be, they're applying for some of the county's ARPA funds to be spent, to be used on childcare. And so you might actually start hearing from some people because we're actually starting a campaign right now to for childcare providers and for people in the community who have children and are concerned about childcare as an issue, and for employers to contact their county board members. So just heads up, you might be hearing from some people about that. It really is a huge issue, not just here, but everywhere. And the more that we can do to shore up this, I mean, we have a hard enough time attracting workforce to begin with. And if we can have really good available childcare in our county, that will really help. Okay, we already have great childcare, but we also we need to support the industry. I mean, a lot of childcare workers can't afford to even send their own kids to their own childcare that they work at because they don't make enough money. Things like that are really broken. So,
Can I interrupt?
of course, of course.
I've talked to Ryan a little bit about part of that. But I was wondering if your two programs, if you're gonna build a bridge so that you transport the kids to daycare and the parents to work and that kind of stuff.
That's been talked
And
about.
then I was talking with Brian if he could bring up, maybe you could help him to see if we could provide space for a daycare here in the courthouse. Sort of like you guys, we kind of just contract with you to give you space.
Yep.
Like the county wouldn't run the daycare center, but we have some extra room, plus we're doing that space study, and I think it'd be a good time to
Interesting.
take a look at that, so.
Yeah, I mean, public-private partnerships are gonna be important, and
And my crazy part of my idea was that we provide overnight for the parents that work night shift.
oh,
So, you know, a night care.
yeah,
Because when I was working in the factory, I didn't mention that before I got in law enforcement, I was a factory worker.
Yep.
And when I transitioned from factory to law enforcement, I was only making like $6 or $7 an hour. But my wife at the time was working at the post office, making a lot of money. And if things hadn't worked out and timed out just right, it was getting to the point where I would have been a stay-home dad.
yeah.
So I know that feeling, and I know that there's a need for that night shift type help, so.
There really is, and we also know that, you know, we need workforce, and a number of women have left the workforce because they were in that difficult position of having to decide whether it was worth it, or maybe not able to find childcare or not able to worth it. And so now women had just been getting to the point where they've made great strides in their workforce participation. And that the pandemic just reeled that back by decades. And so, and we need workforce. And so if we can figure this out, it could help all of our businesses by a lot. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It has been talked about, this transportation of kids to daycare. In fact, when we were applying for this grant, I think the city of Waupaca was working on something sort of similar to that. I could be wrong because, yeah, I could be wrong, but, and we talked about combining forces and maybe us working together on this grant application. And then it turned out it just didn't quite work out. So we applied for separate grants, but that is being talked about, and I'll make note of it too. So thank you.
I just want to do a little overview on that, because you can't have, the existing people in the county have their parents living here. So if you want someone else to come from another county to come here, their parents aren't coming with them, okay? So they don't have that close person to drop that kid off. You know, and that's what I try to tell people. Well, we shouldn't have, well, no, it isn't like it was back in 1950, 1970. We're trying to draw people into the county. So their grandparents are not coming with them. So we gotta give them that extra little space and help them out.
And at one point, you know, wages were different, they worked different, and now both, in order to just survive, if there are two adults in the household, they often both have to work, whereas at one point, the wages they worked out a little bit differently where, you know, they could possibly live off of one person's income, so.
That was prior to 1970.
No, you're right, you're absolutely, since the
Because I'll
seventies.
tell you, after 1970, it took two incomes to
Yes.
survive.
No, you were absolutely right, and in fact, it is the seventies is right around where that break is. Okay, so, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another project I'm working on that you'll hear a lot about in the coming months is Clintonville downtown. That's something I started last year. And there's been a whole bunch of turnover in the core team. And so we got off to a slow start, but now it's really rocking. They just got approval last week to become a part of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation's Connect Communities program, which I think is some really great forward progress in that project. Then locally here in Waupaca, I've been working with what had been called the Social Connectedness Action Team. It was a group of people trying to combat social isolation because that was found to be a big issue in the area. In fact, it's really a big issue all over. But what that program is working on is a combination of two things. Neighborhood development. So now it's called the You Belong Initiative because we combined with another group that had been getting together in the area. Now we kept their name because it was cooler. The You Belong Initiative is working on two things. One is neighborhood development. So literally we've contracted with someone to come in. She's from NeighborWorks in Green Bay, had formerly been housed at Goodwill, North Central Wisconsin in Menasha. She's a neighborhood organizer and she's literally like knocking on doors and getting people together. There's a whole process involved in this, but we're still at the beginning stages of the neighborhood stuff because of COVID. That really threw us because we had been ready to like really get going with it, and then that happened and we kind of had to pull back on the whole like getting together with people in person thing. And then the other thing they're working on, which I'm heavily involved in, is they want to create a living sort of map. It's not necessarily like a map that you'll unfold and look at, although there might be a version of it that's like this, but they really want to show people all the different ways that they can engage and all the different groups that they can engage with to feel some sense of belonging. And we mean both informal and formal. So if there's an informal group of people who get together to play bridge or something, and they're open to new members and they're a friendly group of people, that might show up on there. Even if they're getting together at someone's house, it might show up on there. We wouldn't map out the house, we would just have like a contact information. So we're looking at this very differently. Trying, rather than like mapping out, oh, here's the community center, here's the post office, here's the library, we're gonna take a different approach where we're really looking at some of the stories even behind some of the groups. So someone might, maybe they met a bunch of people, they kept showing up at the disc golf course every Saturday to throw the discs. I just said it, right? But I was gonna say throw the golf, but that didn't happen. So to throw the discs and they kept seeing the same people and eventually they became friends, even like sharing some of those stories, because when people move to the area, they might find something, they might be able to find something in all of this where they feel like, oh, I connect with that. And hopefully they'll be able to find a place. So I could give you the whole history on that, but I'm already taking up enough time. And then we have Leadership Waupaca County, which has been mentioned a couple of times. Just grab one. This is the brochure from the group that just graduated. So this is basically one of the pieces we used to promote the program last year. The group just retired. I had a hard time trying to fall asleep last night. So the group just graduated last Wednesday. It was a lovely little gathering. It was the first time we had gotten together in person. It was great. And the projects were, because you're not going to see it on there, one group was working on intergovernmental cooperation project where possibly, maybe eventually down the road, the county and the city of Clintonville might work together on a building for some equipment, to house some equipment,
Repairs too.
yeah, and repairs. So you're familiar with that project?
Yeah. And then I don't know if anybody knows, the Merc is finally taken down.
Yes,
So
that's
it's a whole
wonderful.
different downtown.
There's so
Really-
much happening in Clintonville, there really is. That's wonderful to hear, I didn't know that.
Well, they've still got some cleanup, but the
Yeah.
walls are completely down, so.
So congratulate them. And then a second group was working on understanding how to attract people to the area, partly because we need workforce, but partly because, we need to, fill some of our houses. There's a lot more activity that they'd like to see in their community, and that was more in particular to Clintonville as well. That group was mostly the Clintonville, Marion area. And the third group worked on a totally different aspect of broadband. So every single year for Leadership of Waupaca County, broadband comes up as an issue they want to work on. And this group looked at it from a different angle. They looked at it from the standpoint of educating residents about what kinds of speeds they actually need for their needs. What kind of speeds will actually meet their needs? So they could make an informed decision about what internet to choose. And so I thought they did a really good job. They all did. I was so proud of them that night. Very, very proud. So Leadership of Waupaca County, if anyone doesn't know, it had been formed, had been a 9-month program. We're looking at making some changes for next year, where it might be a little bit more condensed than that. But it had been a 9-month program, 1 day a month for 9 months. It ran through a whole slew of both skill building items and helping people to understand all the different components that make up a community and how they all fit together. So kind of a systems approach. And then really quick, 2 things. Elevando, Wisconsin is something you'll hear a lot about. That graduation for that program is coming up this Wednesday. Elevando, Wisconsin came about from discussions I had years ago with a resident in Waupaca County who had been through the Leadership Waupaca County program. She said there needs to be something like this for people who are Spanish speakers. And I said, oh, that's great. And I made a couple calls. I couldn't, that's not something I could have done on my own. I should say I couldn't have. With the time that I had, I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own. There's a lot involved in that. And then a couple of years ago, one of my colleagues said, hey, I heard from some people at our multicultural center that we really need a Spanish language leadership development program. And I said, well, hey, I've heard about that too. Maybe this is a statewide thing. So we got together, started talking. We pulled together a number of folks who Latino leaders from across the state, and with their input, or with their direction, I should say, they guided us to the topics that would be culturally relevant. We delivered our first cohort last fall and graduated them in December, and now we're on our second cohort this spring, graduating in tomorrow, 2 days from now. And that has been an incredibly meaningful space. That's the biggest thing that we've noticed from the people who have attended, is that it has been just so meaningful and hopeful and empowering. So that's been really interesting. It's delivered simultaneously in English and Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, so I mean, I can listen a little, but lastly, so those are all the things that are currently active that has either had local participation or local, just locally happening right now. One thing that I'm promoting locally, and hopefully we will have some nonprofits go through this program, is there's a nonprofit peer learning program coming up starting in July, where we're really trying to connect nonprofits across the state. So that's one of the goals, is connect them so that they can lean on each other and help each other out where necessary. And then the other part is teaching them some skills. The first one is going to be teaching them what we're calling hands-on organizational planning, simplified. So a really simple process for them to do hands-on planning with their boards or with their constituents. So the very last thing I have on my list is, this is just kind of a fun thing. One of our colleagues in another county, a couple of our colleagues in other counties developed this entrepreneur and training partnership program, where they help formerly incarcerated individuals start a business because, well, for a lot of reasons, but it's difficult to find a job sometimes when you have been incarcerated. You probably know about that, and that didn't come out right.
You don't know my family.
Yeah, that didn't come out right, sorry. But, and I volunteered, so I have this background in economic development. I used to coach entrepreneurs, and I thought I would volunteer one night to be a coach, and they just sent me a lovely little thank you, and I hope to be involved in the program in the future, but I'm doing that, you know, mostly as a volunteer, on a volunteer basis, but it is an extension program, and it was a really fun thing to be part of, so, great. That's all, I'm sorry, I spoke very quickly, apologies.
You're fine. Any questions for Jessica?
Yeah, any questions? Okay.
Okay, then I am Penny Tank. I am the 4-H program educator. I brought treats today that I hope you'll eat, or I'll be taking a lot home. But today is actually my 25th anniversary in the office here. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So I brought treats, so help yourself.
I'm gonna have one.
And it's kind of funny because I had camp counselor training on Saturday, like 2 days ago. And that was how I started my job, was camp counselor training on a Sunday. And so I am, as I said, the 4-H program educator. I moved to this area for this job, is how I started out. I grew up in West Bend, and this position started out as a 3-year position, and I thought to myself, well, if it's 3 years and I like it, that's a good 3 years. If it's 3 years and I don't, it's only 3 years. So, but I'm still here 25 years later. My background, I was a 4-H member in Washington County, and I have a elementary education degree from UW Green Bay. And then while I was working here, our district director at the time had encouraged me to work on my master's. So I got a master's through UW Stevens Point in human and community relationships. And so the 4-H program, I'm going to pass around a few things that I know that the members of the committee who were on the committee last month, I believe I handed this out already, but I wanted to bring that for everybody, so I better keep one for myself. And then a 4-H brochure. And then the third handout is just a handout of photos, which those of you who were here last month saw my presentation on Super Saturday. And so those are just some, it's a thank you that I did to the people who helped with Super Saturday, which includes then photos from the event. So my role within the 4-H program is I oversee the whole county program. And so I support the club general leaders who we have on the one handout coming around. We have just over 400 members enrolled in 4-H. And we have about 170 volunteer leaders. And so I help support those volunteer leaders, working with the clubs that they take leadership for, the project areas that they work with, the county programs, all of those pieces are what I help support at the county level. And so we have 18 4-H clubs around Waupaca County. And a few other statistics on here. We have 75 Clover Buds, which are grades K through 2. And that is the most we've had in a number of years. So we have a lot of young members in our 4-H program. 4-H, you can be a member from kindergarten through 1 year after high school. And The grade level that has the highest amount of children enrolled is 4th grade this year. So it was 6th grade, the last like 3 years in a row. And so our highest grade of enrollment is 4th grade. And 70% of people who are in 4-H in our county right now live in towns or just not on farms, but in the rural area, because Waupaca County is very rural. So, you know, historically, if, you know, people have heard of 4-H, a lot of times it's the agricultural part of 4-H that they hear about. But we do have only 30% of our membership actually lives on farms. That does not mean, though, that people in town can't do the agricultural part. We have people who will show animals that are on somebody's farm. We have a couple families that have showed some of our dairy cattle that are from our farm in New London. And, you know, people can have dogs, cats, a lot of chickens in town as well, rabbits. So there is still that agricultural focus. However, 4-H is expanding and really trying to reach out in the areas of interest and project areas that we cover. And so if you look on this, our highest enrolled animal project, when I said there's a lot of chickens, poultry is the highest enrolled project area. We have 91 members in poultry, followed by swine, cats, dairy, and beef. And then looking at the non-animal project areas, art. We have 147 members enrolled in art. That can be anything from drawing and painting to ceramics to stencil painting, metal art, macrame, all of those things are together. Followed by photography, woodworking, and home environment, which home environment is like the home decorating, like, you know, latch up. My daughter did a latch up. That's an older thing, but my daughter did a latch up. It's like the things that you would use to decorate your home, or something useful. You know, you could make something in home environment for your bathroom, things like that. So that's just a little overview of our project areas. And what 4-H really tries to do, and what we're really working to focus on, is helping young people find their spark, something that they are interested in, that they can do, that they can maybe follow up on as a career or as a area of interest that they can continue doing. One of the ways we do that, the one handout that I passed out with all the photos on it, that, as I said, was from our Super Saturday Project Day. And that we just held at the end of March. And that is a day where I work, and that's also in my written report this month. I work with a committee of 12 youth and adults to put that day together. We have gone from when I started, we had about 70 participants at Super Saturday. This year, we had over 150. Last year, we actually had over 200. We kind of changed, not last year, the last time we did it, 2020. We got it in 2020 before COVID. We've changed it a little bit this year just to control those numbers a little bit, because when you add parents to that and teachers, we were over 300 people. And so we did change it a little bit this year just so we didn't have quite as large of a group together. And but we do offer about 40 classes. And anybody in 4-H can sign up for those just to try and find something that you're interested in. So we have anything from woodworking, we had ice fishing this year. They learned how to make tip-ups. We do a lot of art classes. We did some animal classes, handmade salve, painting, cat and dog toys, all kinds of things that we offer that day. And so that was just one example. I had those extra thank you notes from sending those out to people. So I had just wanted to share that. And then I also passed around our updated brochure. And that just tells a little bit more about the 4-H program. Some of the other things that I have on my report this year, in addition to supporting the clubs and the project areas, for example, we did an after-school program up in Clintonville this spring. We're usually able to get up there once a year. We have the Woodland Badgers 4-H club up in Clintonville, usually does they have families that bring in animals. The kids at the elementary school there really like, we do kind of a petting zoo. And at the same time, it is 4-H members who are explaining their project animals. So it's not just going like to a petting zoo, it's educational for them and it's educational for the youth who are bringing their animals because they're able to talk about like, Nicole Kirshner, for example, she just graduated last year. She always brought a lamb. And, you know, she's able to talk about how she raised this lamb for a market lamb or how you get it ready for the fair and what you learn by having an animal. So that's something we were normally able to do. Clintonville Schools, if you're familiar with the area, is closing early this year because they started early and they're doing construction. So the after-school program is ending like, I don't know.
They have graduation.
Last week, yeah.
I think the younger
So,
grades that go through Wednesday or something.
yeah, right. So Clintonville is gonna be done. So it was a little bit shorter notice when the after-school program director had contacted us. So we weren't able to get all the people together with the animals, but we did a dairy. We had some cheese tasting and we read a book about cheese making and pizza, and the cheese was donated from Wold Creamery in New London and put that together for the after-school program. And then like the dog project, we've had a couple of meetings for the dog project. Tomorrow night, we actually have a meeting at the fairgrounds. One of the officers from the Sheriff's Department Canine Unit is bringing their canine companion to the fairgrounds for us for a dog project meeting to learn about the canine program and, you know, potentially some careers in that area, how that all works and things like that. And then, like I said, I had counselor training on Saturday. We do our summer camp in conjunction with Portage County. And this year we are doing our junior camp at the environmental station in Amherst. We will be there for a one-night overnight. Camp counselors can be grade 8 and above, and we have 8 counselors that we are training. We had one Zoom earlier. We had Saturday, we met at the Waupaca Public Library, which was great. And then we're doing another Zoom before camp yet to share with them their responsibilities as a counselor. And then they also help us with some of that camp planning and things that we do at camp. And so, you know, really trying to focus on the main things that I try and focus on are that youth involvement in things, youth adult partnerships, that we encourage youth and adults to work together, and then also just volunteer development and, you know, like helping our project leaders, supporting our club leaders. We have a 4-H leaders board that gets together, and so just helping them with questions that they have and supporting their efforts. And one just exciting thing I had shared with the rest of the committee when I did my presentation the last month that we met, we with Chris has mentioned that he's an area director and we're area 10. As area 10, myself and the 3 other 4-H program educators from these 4 counties that we were able to plan an art retreat. And that's something that the state 4-H office, there was an open position. And so they usually have some of those art offerings that weren't being offered. And so the 4 of us worked together to put it on for our 4 counties. And we had almost 50 kids there. We had a musical group from Oshkosh that came that taught the young people actually how to write songs. They had the young people make up lyrics based on a photo, like what do you see in this picture? And they made up lyrics to go with it. We did macrame. We had somebody come up with wildlife projects. They made earrings out of feathers. They also did stamping, and we did watercolor painting. We did pour painting, just a variety of different art forms, and we did journaling. And so trying to have them, you know, reflect on that experience as well. So that's just a sampling of some of the things that I do within the 4-H program. And I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
I think it's great because you give kids another vision. And you just, I mean, you can put a song together by looking at it.
And the kids weren't afraid. They came up and sang it in the microphone. So it was really, really interesting. And that's, you know, and that's just trying to to get people again with those sparks is kind of a word right now, you know, to try and that's something that you hear, you know, in the community, in the schools, all different places you hear about sparks. And that really is what we try to do in 4-H as well is, you know, maybe bring up some new things that could be a spark for people or, you know, helping them develop the things that they're interested in.
Chris, can I say one quick thing about leadership in Pike County? It's related to what you just said and everything else. The support that we get from our support staff is incredible, and I promise I won't make you stand or anything, but both last week for leadership at Pike County, both Annette and Amy were like helping me out with that program, and they do an incredible job. And you know, not only do I want to recognize the two of them for the awesome work that like I know and trust that I can lean on them when I need them, and especially Amy works more directly with me than Annette does, but Annette also pitched in last week. We were having printing problems and they were working together to figure it out, and it was yeah, they do an incredible job, and we lean on them a lot. And I'm assuming you do too, but I know like we lean on them a lot because if they weren't doing what they were doing, I just listed a whole bunch of things for you guys. That's a lot of projects. It's a lot of projects, and I'm not trying to give myself any but I can't do that without them, so.
Thank you. No, it's really special to be a part of this office, and I've very much enjoyed the last 3 years. Yeah, it's a great group.
She's looking for a pay increase.
I do have
I brought donuts.
You know, Penny, I think that in Iowa, I know there's a 4-H group, I don't know which group it is, just someone at work, their kids were cleaning, picking up trash or cleaning up a cemetery. And I just thought, wow, that is so good that 4-H is still around. I mean, it seems like you were able to keep an older concept, change with the times and keep it going. And I really think that because he had the same person for 25 years, and I hope you stay another 25. I think you really.
My birthday is tomorrow. I don't want to share that.
But I think really having one person in our area continuing, I mean, I really think you would have a lot to do with building and changing with the times.
Thank you. And that's actually, sorry, not to go backwards, but that 3-year pilot project that I mentioned, like if I like it, it's, you know, a good 3 years. That actually started out because of the turnover in the position.
Sure.
And so there were actually, that's why my position was a 3-year pilot project, was that there were 2 of us working in youth development when I was hired. Connie Abert had started in January, and I started, yes, and
I know, I saw that.
passed away last week. So Connie started in January and I started in May, and we both worked on 4-H youth development. Over time, she got more of a focus on community youth development and doing work with the schools, work with the Justice Department, worked with teen court, worked with alcohol and drug rehabilitation, like all kinds of different community things that impacted youth. And I focused on the 4-H program. And so that's where my position was continued after 3 years because of the impact that, you know, Connie was able to show with the community part of that, and then also the 4-H youth development part. And after her accident and then just the position being open, you know, things have all changed over time. And that's where where Chris mentioned that I'm working to hire somebody for the summer and, you know, just to help keep some of those things and even try a few new things. I'm looking at a few different projects, just day camps, but they won't be in the day. They'll be an evening camp, like a 2-hour evening. I don't know what else to call them, but they'll just be like a short period of time, but just to focus on a couple different projects. That's right, short period of time camp. Evening camp, it just doesn't sound right. So, you know, even something like that, to have somebody in the summer to help, you know, with some of those different pieces, so.
Nightcap.
Very nice. Like that might not really attract the age group I'm looking at.
That's my age group, nightcap.
Yeah.
SPP camp. Short periods.
That's right, that's right. Sorry, I interrupted you, Ken.
No, Penny reminds me of my 1, 2, 3 grade school teacher. Shirley Ford, Lloyd Ford, I don't know, down in Alicia. Because she's very joyful in it. She enjoys it, you can see it. And that's what kids love. You gotta get down. Kids nowadays, you gotta get down on the floor and talk to them.
I can't do that quite as well.
I mean, that's what it takes.
Yes, yes. Thank you. It's been good. I know I have some years ahead of me, so, it was just, I wanted to just bring some treats for that 25-year anniversary.
Okay, let's go on to number 9, outreach, education, and program reminders and announcements from staff.
So I don't think we have any this month. We kind of, so in the future, what our past has been is that we would have one educator who would give a little more of an in-depth report with impact or other opportunities. And then we wanted to maintain some space because sometimes you have questions or there's upcoming programs. So we want to have a space so that we can follow up or ask questions or have some dialogue or bring topics. So that's what that placeholder is for, because we usually try to, for like in March, Penny gave a more detailed report and presentation relating to Super Saturday.
Educational
Experiences.
Yep.
Educational experiences. So just to give an example where that placeholder is. So.
Okay, then we'll go on to our monthly meeting, our
Yep.
discussion and action regarding our meeting schedule.
Right.
I guess from a personal standpoint, to me, every other month is too long.
Yep.
To be apart. I was thinking if we could have something like every 6 weeks or something. But I look at my schedule and I've got 2 other Mondays that have meetings, so there'll always be conflicts. And does anybody else have any ideas or?
Well, I would say let's stick to the same schedule.
Right. So just some context for I'll tell you what we've done, and that doesn't mean that we have to do it that way. So the schedule was the last Monday, and to be honest, our staff has discussed and we would prefer 4th Monday or a fixed, because sometimes what happens is that some of our professional our programmatic, they host professional development on the 5th Mondays because typically there's not meetings, and so it's an opportunity. So then we have to make choices things. So we had been on the most cases the last Monday. We're meeting early this month because we needed to meet the 30 days from when you were appointed to elect the chair, not thinking about the fact that I could have had you guys, the group meet at the county board and elect the chair, and then we would have satisfied that requirement, and then we could have met on the regular schedule. What I prefer, so Dennis, here's listening, and based on what we've had, if we, depending on the Monday that is selected, I can bring a calendar of what that looks like for the next year, and then we can look at, if the 4th Monday, we're probably not going to meet in December because of the way that the holidays fall. And there are some other months where we may choose to, to get about to that 8 to 10 or 10 to 11 meetings per year, with more frequency, probably starting July through November because of budget process. But up to this group and with the new supervisors, then I think there's some opportunity for discussion of when that is, of when you, with your other meetings and some other things of when, of what that would be for the group. So
When
so
the next meeting, I guess.
yeah, the next meeting.
You set something up.
So this group, if you say, hey, let's target, or let's see what the 4th Monday looks like, we would set that for our next meeting, and then I would bring a calendar for the next to see, and then we would kind of set that as the tentative schedule for the rest of at least the term.
See, it would be,
That'll work.
it would work with me on the 4th.
And then we can always take a look at it and tweak it, maybe it might be a time, just a different time or. a
So
different-
for example, where we've come in with that in-between one is, Thanksgiving and Christmas usually hit about the same time of the month. And if there are some conversation topics, we've then agreed, okay, we're gonna meet on the second Monday in December, and then we will, and then we'll resume our normal schedule after that. So that's an example of one, of where we've done that.
So the fourth Monday in June is the 27th? Is that what we're looking at?
That's correct. And I guess the other thing, timing, I set the meeting at 9, Monday mornings at 8:30. I know that are a little more challenging for us and our staff, and just to get in and get going, and so that's where the 9 o'clock, and we are adaptable and we'll meet the needs of if you have other meetings and or understanding you have a work schedule that you also have to work with. So
Am I the only one working? That's a bummer.
I worked 3 days last week. I picked horseshoes all week.
So
It's a question, are we having a meeting in June or? wait till July?
27th.
I would like to have a meeting in June, because I will actually, if it's okay with you, I would, well, I guess that's kind of where I would like to start kicking off the budget process and pulling that together. And with that, would this group appreciate more information on the regional ag staffing strategy? Just an update of where, it'll be for the returning, it'll be fairly similar. But there might be some updated information from our Ag Institute to at least start that conversation.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
I've gotten a few calls already.
Okay, so I will plan on that. So let's do this. How does this sound? Fourth Monday, and I'll start that. I will work out a calendar between Amy and I will work out a calendar. Timing. What is the timing that works the best for this group? I'm sensing possibly a morning. What does work for?
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Lila, can that work?
Yeah.
Looks out for you and your staff. Oh, you're working.
That's okay. I start at 7:30 in the morning. That might be a bit early for people. No, not
Well,
9
no,
o'clock.
we used to start at 8:30, but then it's hard for the staff to get
Yeah,
together.
that's fine. We can
You
shoot
know, that's
for
why
9.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we will strive, so this one was a little bit longer. We strive for about 90 minutes. Sometimes we get closer to an hour and 15 minutes. And depending on other topics or conversations, but that's what we really strive for. We're actually pretty close.
I had a 10:30 meetings.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, so,
I didn't even, sorry,
I don't have one till 11. so-
I have a 10:30 Zoom. I was supposed to be leading. Sorry. I
okay.
didn't even realize it was after 10:30.
Oh,
That's what
so,
happens when it's your
okay,
anniversary.
so let's do
I know.
this. So
Thank you, everybody, sorry.
fourth Monday, so we'll start with 9 AM on the 27th will be our next meeting.
Yep.
Amy and I will bring, and we'll include that in the packet for review, and then we will confirm, look at the calendar for the rest of, at least for the rest of, through April of next year. And go from
Sounds
there.
good.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
I gotta jump on that. That's my job.
Well, thanks everyone. Nice to
You
meet
did the
you.
Zoom
Yeah,
live.
thanks for
Yes, you
tolerating
did.
my fast talking.
Yep.